So good morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Collins. You might recognize me from over at Cafe Mosaic. You may recognize the last name. I was a police officer here in the city of Benton Harbor from 2003 to 2008. Career started off 21 years old. Came down in July of 2003 as a 21-year-old, fresh out of the academy, excited about life, excited about potential of being a really good officer. Always had high dreams for my career that I would climb the ranks quickly. Saw that pretty quick. Within the first year, I became a crime scene investigator. Within the second year, I was awarded Police Officer of the Year. I received an accommodation from the FBI for my part in investigation. So the career path was going the way that I had seen it going, straight up. But with that, my head grew too. Every step I took in the right direction, as much as my small town fame grew, and other officers would say, hey, you're doing a good job, or my chief might say you're doing a good job, or, citizens on the street, I hear people say, oh, that's Collins. My head, my ego, I liked that. I became addicted to that ego-driven stuff, okay? And that's really where my pit started. I love listening to Mel's presentation about the pit because I can so identify within that pit. So I drew a pit, and I want to share my pit with you because some people, so this is me in the pit, so some people just jump right in. Like they do one wrong thing and they're in the pit. Or one wrong thing happened to them and they find themselves in the pit. For me, it was much different. For me, it was small steps leading down into the pit. It was at the beginning of my career, if I draw myself up here as little baby Andrew, who didn't know much about the world and just had high hopes about his career. Because I'll tell you, I became a police officer because when I was 5 or 6, my dad used to beat my mom all the time. And I was terrified of this dude. They'd go out on Friday, they'd get drunk, they'd come home, something would have happened out where they were at, they'd get into a fight. I watched him hit her with beer bottles, I watched him hit her with a crowbar, I watched him hit her with a steel-toe boot, straight out just punched her, right in front of me like she was a man. She's only 5 foot nothing, And I was little and I wanted to help my mom and there was nothing I could do because I was so little. So this guy was like my monster, He was a monster in my life. I was terrified of him. And one day they were in the middle of a fight and the cops got called. And when the cop came in, I saw my dad terrified for the first time. I saw him cower to this police officer. And it wasn't because the cop was mean, he wasn't aggressive, he wasn't over the top, he was just there. And he was authority. And I watched my dad cower, to come to find out my dad was a coward. I didn't know that at 5 years old. So when I saw that, I said, man, I want to be that. I want to be that person that brings peace into a chaotic scene. I got to leave with that officer that night. He gave me and my mom a ride to a friend's house. He let me play with the buttons and the sirens and all that stuff. And from that point on, 5 or 6 years old, I knew I was going to be a cop. So when I go through high school and all my friends say, I don't really know where I'm going to college, I don't know what I'm going to do, I always knew. When I was in college and my friends were switching majors and they went from this to that, I always knew I was going to be a cop. So it was always every time I can remember, I was going to be a police officer. So when I came to the city of Benton Harbor in 2003, that's where I came. Not really knowing much about the world, just all these high hopes for wanting to change things. So if you'd have told me at age 21 that by age 25 I'd be planting dope on people, I'd have told you were crazy. Because I knew I would never let myself do that. I knew I would never go that far. I knew that I would never let myself get to that point, that I was better than that, that's not who I am. But I started taking these small steps. I started seeing that if I bend the law a little bit when I'm writing a report, there's some officers that call it creative articulation. That if I creatively articulate what happened in this case, that the person is probably going to have to plead guilty because I wrote the report so good that they don't really have a way out. So I started doing that. So I took one step down towards the pit. And I said, you know what, now that I'm here, I started justifying. Because 21-year-old Andrew was speaking to 22-year-old Andrew, kind of saying, what are you doing, man? You heard a little bit about this in the academy, about doing the wrong thing. What are you doing? But then I was justifying. I said, well, look, they were wrong. The person was really doing the wrong thing that I arrested them for. I just made sure that they were good. I was playing judge, too. I was playing the jury. I was making sure that it was going to happen. Well, then, bending the law turned into breaking the law. I had no problem drinking and driving. Had no problem doing things that I would arrest people for. And each step that I took, and I don't know if you guys have ever been there in life, that, you know, you look at your life in 5 years in retrospect and say, how did I ever get here? How did I ever allow myself to get here? Whether it's with a relationship, you know, I will never be with an abusive person. Nobody will ever do to me what they did to my mom. And then you find yourself in an abusive relationship and say, how did I get here? And chances are I wasn't just jumping straight into the pit. It was letting little things happen a little bit at a time. So before I knew it, I was breaking the law. And then I was looking at stealing money, and that's something that I said, I can consciously remember at one point in my career early on that I said, there was an officer that was in Benton Harbor that was known for being dirty, and we don't have to say his name. It was before me. I'm kind of that guy now. But he was known for being dirty, and he was known for stealing money, and he was known for taking dope from people and selling it himself. So I said, I will never do that stuff. Even when I was here, bending the law, maybe lying a little bit, tweaking reports, I said I would never do that. That's a standard that I will never do. I will never steal money, and I'll never plant dope on people. But you know what? The more I took those steps, the next step wasn't that far. For me to jump from here to here would have been a crazy leap. That's like, you know, jumping down into the pit. That's like scary. That's like I might break my leg. I might twist an ankle. Like, that's too far. I'm not jumping that far. But taking one step at a time, well, that really wasn't that bad. And I'm getting good results from it. People are pleading guilty. My chief is telling me I'm amazing. I'm getting promotions. Here's my head swelling again. Like, that time of my life, I don't know how people fit in cars with me because my head was so big. I got a big head to begin with, but it was even bigger. So the more I would do wrong, the more the worse things would seem not that bad. So then I take that step, and before I know it, I was stealing money. I can remember a case where a kid, now I see him as a kid, I just saw him then as a drug dealer, but he was trying to break into a house to steal some dope. He heard that there was dope in the house, was trying to break in, and the dope dealer heard he was coming. And he waited at home, and he shot the kid in the face. And I was called out to that scene as a crime scene investigator. And I remember, I can see it today. It's like seeing somebody else's life, because I can't imagine how I ever got to that point. But I'm looking at this kid, and he's laid out on the ground, 2 bullet holes, and I felt nothing. I felt no compassion for him. And I said, man, something's wrong with me. Something's changed. I don't know why something's changed, but I can feel something's changed. I didn't realize that I was taking all these steps, right? But then I heard that there was money in the house. And before I know it, I'm contemplating, how can I get into the house to steal money? Like, how messed up is that, right? Like, this Andrew would have had it out with that Andrew. Like, how dare you? You know? Like, not even treating this like a human, like this person's like a human being. You know, so to take that jump never would have happened at 21, but when I allowed little things to happen, before I knew it, that wasn't that big of a deal. And I remember going home that night feeling numb, thinking, something's changed. I've gone too far. And I was not even completely in the pit yet, but I was on my way there. And I remember thinking, there's no real hope for me. This is over. Like, this is just who I am now. This is the new norm for me. This is now normal. And there was a couple times that I'd have these epiphanies that I need to stop doing this stuff. So I would kind of veer towards not doing it as much anymore. But then, sure enough, like, I don't know where you guys are at with faith, but in my faith, I believe that there is an enemy that wants to kill, steal, and destroy things in my life. So I'd start making these decent moves back towards not doing that corrupt stuff. But then something would happen, and there'd be money right in front of me, and nobody else was around. So that temptation was just too much for me at that point in my life. So I'd take it and I'd say, okay, this is the last time, the very last time. I don't know if you guys have ever been there before. This is the last time. I'll never do that again. And then, sure enough, it happens again, right? So then, before I know it, I'm all the way down here at the end of my career, 25 years old. 4 years is all I lasted. You know, shot straight up in my career and then shot straight back down because of my actions, because of my decisions. And then I found myself in my pit. And I was caught February 18th, 2008. Caught with crack, heroin, and marijuana in my office. That was a Tuesday. On Wednesday, I thought about killing myself because I was like, there's no coming back from this. My friends were gone. All the money that I made, you know, I was a police officer. I was making decent money. I worked a lot of overtime. Was gone immediately. friends who I had, police officers who we went out drinking all the time. We were buddies. We were friends. We were best friends. Wouldn't look at me anymore. Wouldn't talk to me because they were thinking about their careers. They had to save their careers. You know? The crazy part was people on the streets, people who I had arrested, people who they had more respect for me. They had more compassion for me. They would come up to me and say, hey, man, sorry you're going through this. And I was like, man, that's decent right there. You know, like these dudes won't even talk to me. Yeah, I messed up. I messed up big. But these dudes won't even talk to me. We're supposedly best friends. And here's some people that I had affected their life. And they're saying, hey, hope you get better, man. Hope things are all right. And that really made me respect the streets, you know? Like, because here's the thing. If we're going to be in all honesty, the people I was stealing money from and the people I was planting dope on, they weren't completely innocent, okay? I was onto them because they were into something. And we've had some great conversations, me and these folks, since I've come back to the community, that they'll say that, you know, like, you were doing wrong, I was doing wrong, and we met at the same time. So there was this mutual respect, you know, I was just a criminal who had a badge. Which really makes me the worst kind of criminal, because I felt I was above the law, right? The prosecutor, when I got prosecuted in federal court, he said that what I did tore at the fabric of our society. And I remember thinking like, dang, dude, that's a little rough. Like, I did wrong and I've admitted my guilt. I've pled guilty. Like, you got to go that far in and say that I tore at the fabric of our society? And I started kind of getting angry with him. But then he continued and he said, you know, one of the things that distinguishes us from a third world country is that we're supposed to be able to trust our police. And stuff like this makes it to where our citizens can't. And as he was saying that, I'm like, you know what, he's right. He's absolutely right. I did tear at the fabric of our society. So if we go back a little bit, rewind, I got caught on a Tuesday, thought about killing myself on Wednesday. My wife came home, saw the desperation, and said, I think you need to go talk to a pastor. See, I'd grown up in the church. I knew right from wrong. This Andrew, like I said, never thought he would have been here at 25. Never would have thought that. I knew right from wrong. I came from a nice family, a good family. We had our ups and downs. We had our junk, but I had a good family. I grew up in the church. I knew the truths about Christ and about how he had died for my sins. I always believed it. I just didn't know what the heck it had to do with me. You know, so I go and I talk to this pastor, and he happened to be a police officer in his former life. So for me, I look at that and I say, you know, God is funny the way he lines people up, because I trusted him at a level that I wouldn't have trusted many pastors. So I laid out everything to him. I told him everything. And he sat across the table and he just kind of nodded his head. He said, boy, you're in trouble. And I remember thinking like, dude, this is your best pastoral advice? I know I'm in trouble, but what do I do? And he said, where are you at with Jesus? And I just hung my head. And I remember thinking like, dang, what kind of question is that, man? We're talking about my troubles. What does this have to do with Jesus? You know, like I'm sitting in a pastor's office wondering why he wants to talk to me about Jesus. And I said, I don't deserve him. I started tearing up and I said, I don't deserve him. Because here's the thing, when I got caught, when I realized I was in my pit, like sometimes we get caught and we're like, dang, I got caught. I'm sorry I got caught. You know, we're not truly sorry for what we did, but we're sorry we got caught because now there's consequences. It was almost immediately the next day that I was sorry for what I had done. It wasn't just, oh crap, I got caught. It was, what have I been doing? What is this lie I've been living? Who is this person I've become? So I just told him that. I said, look, I don't deserve him. I don't deserve Jesus. I don't deserve any of this. So he started walking me through some scriptures. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All. A-L-L, all. And the wages of sin is death. And that's what you're feeling. That's what he told me. That's what you're feeling right now is that death. You've been separated from God for so long. And I'm like, all right, man, you're kind of beating me up, you know? And he said, but listen, there's hope, you know? All of us have sinned. The wages of those sins is death. But there's hope because it's in what Jesus did. There's nothing you can do to save yourself. It's what Jesus did on the cross. Okay, I feel this hope welling up inside of me. What do I do with it? He said, well, let's pray right now. He said, you prayed when you were 7 that Jesus would be your Savior, that you trust him that he saved you from your sins. Let's pray that now he become your Lord, that he guides your steps. I said, yeah, let's do it. I've done everything I know how to do, and this is where I ended up. So we prayed. We knelt down on this floor. I felt so stupid. You know, like I'm a grown man kneeling on a pastor's floor with him. What if somebody looks? You know, there was all these things going through my mind that I didn't want to do that. But I kneel down, we pray, and it was like this amazing moment. Like I can't describe what happened. There wasn't a bird that flew down from heaven and whispered in my ear that everything would be okay. I didn't hear an audible voice saying, you will be all right. But I felt the burden lift. And I felt like I was going to be able to make it. And I felt hope again. The darkness was gone.
So we get done praying, we're both sobbing like little babies. I think I lost the contact in his office, and I was snotting all over the place, and I said, what's next? I feel hope. And he said, go home and read your Bible. And I was like, dude, that thing is boring. Like, there's nothing in there that's... And then we read today, like, the story about Bathsheba and David. Like, there's some dysfunctional people in the Bible, right? Like, there's some really cool stories that we can learn from. He's like, no, I think God's done something for you today. Read. Go home and read. And he gave me a version that was a little easier to read, so I started reading, and it was like these little bombs were going off in my soul. I read about this dude and that issue, and I'm like, oh, I can relate to him. And I read about this situation, and I say, man, I can learn from that. And it's been 8 years that it's just like daily trying to get to know God. And the closer I get to him, the farther away I realize I am. Because I don't do things now that I did back then, and I'm proud of that, and I thank God for that, and I thank Jesus that he got me that far. But I realize there's still a lot of places to go. There's still times I find myself down here, that I do things. Now, it's not those things, thank God, but there's things that still find myself in the pit. Usually it's relationally. I find myself in a pit with my wife because maybe I haven't done some things that I said I was going to do. Or maybe it's my daughter that I promised something and I couldn't make it. And, so I find myself in these pits. But rather than staying here, I've surrounded myself now with people who aren't in this pit. Because if I'm honest, and if the county of Berrien, city of Benton Harbor, and the FBI and the VA, if they're all honest, there was some people in this pit with me, right? Me and another one went to prison, but there was a lot of people in this pit with me. I don't hang around those people anymore. So when I find myself in the pit, I know that there's people up here that are calling down saying, I can help you out. And that comes in the form of relationships with men who are in my men's group on Tuesday mornings, that I trust them. I trust that if I tell them, hey man, I fell this week with whatever, that they're not going to judge me. They're not going to kick me down. They're not going to tell me I deserve to be in that pit. They're going to draw me back up and say, come on, let's walk this out together. I've been there before. And if I made it, you can make it. My church family, Mosaic was a huge help to me coming out of prison. And that's kind of a part I left out. I went to prison. I was convicted of possession of crack with intent to deliver, transported with a few people who I had arrested. Talk about some awkward silences in the transport van while we're all shackled. Like there was some times that I really had to trust God for my safety. Because I didn't know where these guys' minds were at and who I was. So, I had to go through it. So when I got out, there was some consequences to deal with. There's and I was talking to my friend here earlier, that there's these consequences that we all see coming out of prison. There's the fact that I was in prison, and the relationships that need to be maybe mended, or maybe they can't be mended. Maybe I just need to let them go. There's the fact that I have restitution. I had to pay $10,000 back to the city of Benton Harbor. That's something I could see. That was money leaving my bank account every month. There was just the damage I did to my family. That's something I could see it. I can see it happening. But then there's these collateral consequences too, things that we can't really see. That when I mark on an application felon, and I send that off to Meyer Security, something that I'm well qualified for, and they want to pay $9 an hour for a security guard, and I'm thinking, I need something coming out of prison, and they get the application and say, felony? Actually, they brought me in for an interview and said, we hope that you accidentally put felony and you meant misdemeanor, and we had this awkward moment when I said, nope, it's really a felony, and then they shredded my application. But that's a collateral consequence that sometimes we don't see the things. All the money that I could have made legally as a police officer had I not done the wrong things I did. If I had not put myself in my pit. At the end of my career, I was making $60,000 a year. I don't make anywhere near that. Not even close to that now. And I was still paycheck to paycheck back then. Like, I look at it now and I say, man, we make money stretched now, and I thank God like every 2 weeks that we're making it. But how in the world was I blowing through that much money? And I learned that the more money I make, the more money I spend. But that's a whole nother talk.